Hello friends, welcome to our channel. This is my first video. We are gonna learn some new vocabulary and some language. Okay, we are gonna read today Atomic Habits book introduction. Okay, so let's get straight into it. Okay, introduction. On the final day of my sophomore year of high school, I was hit in the face with a baseball bat. As my classmate took a full swing, the bat slipped out of his hands and came flying toward me before striking me directly between the eyes. I have no memory of the moment of impact. The bat smashed into my face with such force that it crushed my nose into a distorted U shape. The collision sent the soft tissue of my brain slamming into the inside of my skull. Immediately, a wave of swelling surged throughout my head. In a fraction of a second, I had a broken nose, multiple skull fractures, and two shattered eye sockets. When I opened my eyes, I saw people staring at me and running over to help. I looked down and noticed spots of red on my clothes. One of my classmates took the shirt off his back and handed it to me. I used it to plug the stream of blood rushing from my broken nose. Shocked and confused, I was unaware of how seriously I had been injured. My teacher looped his arm around my shoulder and we began the long walk to the nurse's office, across the field, down the hill, and back into school. Random hands touched my sides, holding me upright. We took our time and talked slowly. Nobody realized that every minute mattered. When we arrived at the nurse's office, she asked me a series of questions. What year is it? This is the first question she asked to me. I've answered 1998, but it was actually 2002. Who is the Her next question is, who is the President of the United States? I've answered Bill Clinton. I said the correct answer was George W. Bush. What is your mom's name? Oh, I stalled 10 seconds, paused. Patti, I said casually, ignoring the fact that it had taken me 10 seconds to remember my own mother's name. That is the last question I remember. My body was unable to handle the rapid swelling in my brain, and I lost consciousness before the ambulance arrived. Minutes later, I was carried out of school and taken to the local hospital. Oh guys, if you feel I'm making a mistake and speaking too much faster and unclear, this is my first video, so please compromise and keep listening. We'll be a better speaker in a few days. Keep it up. Let's keep moving. Shortly after arriving, my body began shutting down. I struggled with basic functions like swallowing and breathing. I had my first seizure of the day. Then I stopped breathing entirely as the doctor hurried to supply me with oxygen. They also decided the local hospital was unequipped to handle the situation and ordered a helicopter to fly me to a larger hospital in Cincinnati. Okay, I was rolled out of the emergency room doors and toward the helipad. Across the street, the stretcher rattled on a bumpy sidewalk as one nurse pushed me along while another pumped each breath into my hand. My mother, who had arrived at the hospital a few moments before, climbed into the helicopter beside me. I remained unconscious and unable to breathe on my own as she held my hand during the flight. While my mother rode with me in a helicopter, my father went home to check on my mother and sister and break the news to them. He choked back tears as he explained to my sister that he would miss her 8th grade graduation ceremony that night. After passing my sibling off to family and friends, he drove to Cincinnati to meet my mother. When my mom and I landed on the roof of the hospital, a, a team of nearly 20 doctors and nurses sprinted onto the helipad and wheeled me into the trauma unit. By this time, the swelling in my brain had become so severe that I was having repeated post traumatic seizures. My broken bones needed to be fixed, but I was in no condition to undergo surgery. After yet another seizure, my third of the day, I was put into a medically induced coma and placed on a ventilator. My parents were no strangers to this hospital. 10 years earlier, they had entered the same building on the ground floor after my sister was diagnosed with leukemia at age 3. I was 5 years at the time. My brother was just 6 months old. After 2.5 of chemotherapy treatments, spinal taps, and bone marrow biopsies, my little sister finally walked out of the hospital, happy, healthy, and cancer free. And now, 10 years of normal life, my parents found themselves back in the same place with a different child. While I slipped into a coma, the hospital sent a priest and a social worker to comfort my parents. It was the same priest who had met with them a decade earlier on the evening they found out my sister had cancer. As they faded into night, a series of machines kept me alive. My parents slept restlessly on a hospital mattress. One moment they would collapse from fatigue. The next the next they would be wide awake with worry. My mother would tell me later it was one of the worst nights I've ever had. My recovery. I think friends you are enjoying this lesson. Okay, let's get started. Mercifully, by the next morning, my breathing had rebounded to the point where the doctor felt comfortable releasing me from the coma. When I finally regained consciousness, I discovered that I had lost my ability to smell. As a test, a nurse asked me to blow my nose and sniff an apple juice box. My sense of smell returned, but no everyone's surprise. The act of blowing my nose forced air through the fractures in my eye socket and pushed my left eye outward. My eyeball bulged out of the socket, held precariously in place by my yield, and the optic nerve attaching my eye to my brain. The ophthalmologist ophthalmologist said my eye would gradually slide back into place as the air seeped out, but it was hard to tell now how long. Okay, how long this would take. I was scheduled for surgery 1 week later, which would allow me some additional time to heal. I looked like I had been on the wrong end of a boxing match, but I was cleared to leave the hospital. I returned home with a broken nose, half a dozen facial fractures, and a bulging left eyes. The following months were hard. It felt like everything in my life was on pause. I had double vision for weeks. I literally couldn't see straight. It looks more than a month. But my eyeball did eventually return to its normal location. Between the seizures and my vision problems, it was 8 months before I could drive a car again. At physical therapy, I practiced basic motor patterns like walking in a straight line. I was determined not to let my injury got me down. Okay, guys, we're gonna end this lesson today. I think you've enjoyed a lot. And this, if you listen and enjoy this video, please like and hit subscribe button, and please hit on the bell icon to never miss an update that coming on your way. Bye bye, take care, don't forget to subscribe my channel.